Welcome to this book journey of the book, The Way of the Superior Man by David Deida. Before starting this video, before going through, I really do recommend going and purchasing the audiobook or purchasing the book from Amazon or wherever and joining me on this journey to dissect this book chapter by chapter. I've always wanted to dissect the book, like dive into a book and really live it, breathe it, open it up a little bit. I also love to talk more about the concepts and the things discovered in a book because I know that helps me really get in the information a little bit more, and I hope that that'll get it in for you a little bit as well. Plus, we can always debate, talk about it in the comments, and we can really create a world where, this sort of stuff isn't just held in our own minds and not spoken about. Like, I think we need to create that community. We need to do that. And for all of these reasons, I really want to do this journey, this book journey with you. So please go ahead and get the book. So we're going to do 52 videos in 52 weeks. And the first week is all about this introduction. And it is a meaty introduction. So if you've gone ahead and you've just finished the introduction, which I hope you have, welcome. All right. So the first thing that I noticed when I first read this chapter was that the introduction was quite confronting for me. And I think that's because I always suppressed my masculine side. I think, a very good book as well, which, I probably could have started off with first, other than The Way of the Superior Man, is No More Mr. Nice Guy by Robert Glover. And when I read that book, I felt like, oh my gosh, I am so seen. I am just a nice guy, an androgynous nice guy here. But the great thing about this book is that, it takes it one step further, and it actually gives you, I think, practical ways of breaking that. But I've also really squashed my masculinity, and I've also found myself squashing my sexuality too because of it. And I think I felt quite confronted, especially in the early chapters of this book, as I was really trying to discover my own sexuality and even saying the word sexuality, and even being able to talk about that. I think a few months ago, I would be cringing right now just by hearing that. So I think if you're at that point where you're cringing just by hearing the word sexuality and another guy talk about sexuality, I get you. Don't turn this off. Don't stop reading. Just keep going through it, because I think as you get towards the end, you start realizing, there's a reason I'm cringing. And it's not because it is cringy. It's because I have been repressing this. It's because I have been stopping a lot of myself. It's because I have been repressing me. So don't ever, I think in this whole journey, if you find a bit where you go, ooh, that's confronting, don't figure the mistake is in the writing. Really question yourself as to whether there's something you're being defensive about or whether there's something you need to work on. And that's tough, but I think if you're on this video, you're probably wanting to take responsibility for yourself, and I think that's really freaking important. The whole introduction, I think, is setting up this idea of male and female polarity and how we can achieve what he calls a third stage of being. So the first stage was, our very quintessential 1950s fixed male and female. Men do this, women do this, but that was not working for us in society. So in the 60s, we started going towards a 50-50 sameness, and we're still in that predominantly within our society. And even when this book was written 20 years ago, it's amazing to see how we're still even more so going into this 50-50, everybody's got to be 50-50. But David Deida makes the case that there is a third stage, a third level, which is actually, he's got it right at the end, which is a fantastic thing in this here. So it's time to evolve beyond the macho jerk ideal, all spine, no heart. It's time to evolve beyond the sensitive and caring wimp ideal, all heart, no spine. Heart and spine must be united in a single man and then gone beyond in the fullest expression of love and consciousness possible. And this takes a new kind of guts. This is the way of the superior man. This is what I love about this book. So it really, it forces a challenge within us to go, okay, well, we've created the world where we've gone past this macho 1950s Marlboro man who is mean to his woman. We've gone past that now. We're at the 50-50 stage where everyone's trying to strip away masculinity, strip away femininity, and we can all do everything. Right? And that's where we're in right now. And then he says that there's another level. And I honestly believe it's like understanding that there is beauty in male and there's beauty in female, and we need to genuinely acknowledge, one, that they exist. It's crazy that some people are saying they don't even exist. Acknowledge that they exist and then work with them. And he makes the case in this book so damn well. In a case that's it's not political, it's not politically correct, it's not. I mean, he even makes the case here. The Way of the Superior Man is a book written explicitly for people who have already achieved respect for other genders and sexual preferences, and who consider men and women to be social, economic, and political equals. Now we are ready to move on to the next stage, grounded in this mutual respect and equality, but celebrating the sexual and spiritual passions inherent in the masculine and feminine polarity. And that's what's beautiful about this book. Okay? It's like, I think if we think modern terms, a lot of people are going, okay, well, the right is really the macho jerk ideal. The left is this wonderful political sameness ideal. Well, I think this book is sort of saying both ways is not correct. This book is saying, we need the masculine and we need the masculine and the feminine ideas from what was perceived as the right. And we need the understanding and acceptance that we can choose and own our own polarities. We can own our own reality from the left, but we need to fucking mix the two here. We're not going to have wimp men, which is what we're having a lot of. We need to not have wimp men and not have ballbuster women who don't radiate energy themselves, right? And men that don't have a sense of purpose. And the final thing that he actually comes to brings into this introduction, which I think is fantastic, but you only get a sense of it a lot later on in the book, which I'm excited to delve into a little bit later on, is he dives into this idea of what the core drivers are for males and for females. So these core drivers are actually different for either or. The driver for a male, I love this. The driver for a male, and this is so right. The mission or the search for freedom is the priority of the masculine, whereas the search for love is the priority of the feminine. Gosh, he goes into this so in depth later on in the book, and it's so fantastic. But that is beautiful. That is beautiful for me. And in this introduction, I actually think what's interesting is when I read it the first time, I felt like, it's a little bit shallow, you know? But he backs up his claims later on. But I felt that the examples are a little bit shallow, and I think it's probably because this was written, when was this written? Originally published in 1997. So this book is far out, almost as old as I am. Almost as old as I am, this book. So a lot of the examples that he gives are a little bit old and outdated, I feel. And it reads that, you know, it feels like a 90s kind of thing, but the truths are no less relevant, you know, no less true, I guess. So in this talk, when he talks about masculine purpose and feminine love, he talks about, you know, entertainment. In the introduction, he talks about entertainment that we enjoy. So he talks about how men enjoy more entertainment of sports and football, boxing matches, whereas women, they love more the, relationships. So they want to be filled with love. So that's, real love is not forthcoming. She'll get chocolate, ice cream, and a good romantic drama. So I feel like those examples are a little bit outdated, but maybe that's, interestingly enough, the 25 years of political correctness that has come back with it that maybe is plaguing me even in this moment. So nonetheless, he backs up a lot of that later on in the book, but I understand if you've just read that first introduction and you feel like, oh, there's a few things that make me almost want to stop. Like, don't stop. It gets really good from here. It gets really, really good from here. For the sake of individual autonomy and social fairness, with only good intentions in mind, we have erroneously begun to deny, smooth out, and neutralize our masculine and feminine differences. In doing so, people often end up denying their deepest core desires, which are rooted in their true sexual essence. A lot of people today think they have a balanced sexual essence, but in most cases, they are actually suppressing the natural desires which spring from their real masculine or feminine core. You know, me, I always thought that I was a very feminine man. And I think that's because of what people told me. You know, I was into musical theater, I was into singing, I was into acting, into filmmaking, into expressing poetry. And I've always been told how feminine I am. And also I grew up with, my mother raised me, you know? And I realized that this actually just turned me into a people-pleasing nice guy. Rather than being feminine, I just suppressed my masculine. I didn't think that I related to other men. But that's just because I grew up being raised by a mother, and so I only related to women. I only tried to ever relate to women, and also got told all the time how different I was to other men. So I just sort of stayed away from men. I felt they were dangerous. But, you know, I realize now that I've just been suppressing that. And it's tough. I think with the political correctness that we have nowadays, there's also a couple of paragraphs, especially in the introduction, but also will come back later on, that I think we find difficult to stomach. Or at least I did when I first read this introduction, which was, but if you are, for instance, a heterosexual man with a true masculine sexual essence, then you will be more or less constantly sexually attracted to feminine women you see all day, at the workplace and on the street, to married women as well as teenage girls. As long as they shine the feminine light, you will feel the pull. How do you turn this potential sexual problem into a spiritual gift? God, there's so many problems with that, when you look at it from a framework of 2016 to 2024 political correctness. But at the same time, it's so damn true. And yeah, he makes his points so damn well in this book. And I think once I got to the end of the book, I realized, and I read this introduction for the second time, I realized, you know, I took offense to that when I first started. But by the time I got through this book, I believe every word. Anyway, I would love to know what you took away from the introduction. I'd love to know how you felt about the introduction. Let me know in the comments below. And if you're joining me for this book journey where we dissect each one, the next video is going to be there's like a whole bunch of parts. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. So we start part 1, A Man's Way, next week, which is stop hoping for a completion of anything in life. And we're going to dissect that and go through it and go on this book journey together for the way of the superior man. Guys and girls, if you're joining, we're in for a ride.